Hey there blockheads, Taylor Martin from Pewaukee Lake Sailing School. We're here at the stern of one of our 420s taking a look at some of the really common damage and really common repairs that we've got to do to this boat. And that is where the stern contacts the ground when it's on the dolly. And this is a really common repair, some really common damage that we see, and it's not a major deal. It's one that is fairly simple to fix. You don't have to grind away a lot of this old gel coat to repair. And usually, because it's not very much gel coat, it's one of those repairs that you can kind of tack on at the end of some of your bigger gel coat patch work. One of the things you have to consider when you're fixing something like this is how likely it is to happen again. A repair like this, if we do it typically on an institutional boat, you've got to do it every year unless you're really careful. When it's one of your own boats, a personal boat, once you repair it, you tend to be a little bit more aware of dragging that stern on the ground because you've already fixed it once, and then you don't have to do it as often. While we're at the stern here, we've got another example of what happens when you don't really have the time and energy to finish a gel coat repair properly. We can see here that we've got some new gel coat that was painted on top of our old gel coat for some sort of repair. And this is a fantastic example of what we don't want to see at the end of our gel coat repair. This is a part of the hull where it is in contact with water, and so you want to make sure that this finish is as smooth as you can make it. The other thing with just painting straight on top of old gel coat is that typically when you have old gel coat, it doesn't stick to new gel coat unless you've removed this waxy layer or taken it all the way down to the fiberglass. And so what you really want to make sure is that you have enough time and enough gel coat to take this top layer of gel coat down enough that when you add new gel coat on top of it, you can smooth that so it's nice and flush across the whole hull of the boat. So we'll dive in now and talk a little bit more about how we tackle this specific repair. Hey there blockheads, we're talking a little bit more about this shop space that we're in. And even though we all wear, when we're doing this sort of fiberglass work, our respirators and all our personal protective equipment, we also have, fortunately in this space, a lot of good ventilation. We have a good extraction fan here, which goes up to ventilation up top that vents this out and filters out the particulates. But that really ensures that the air in this space stays clean enough for us to breathe even when we're not wearing these respirators, so that it doesn't get too stagnant in here. This isn't a sort of repair that you would want to try without the right sort of ventilation in place. One of the big things that we want to talk about before tackling any projects like this is making sure that you or the people around you are prepared to do this work. So even though all of you guys are responsible for your boats and for taking care of your boats, you might not necessarily be the ones responsible for doing this sort of fiberglass work. So before any time you grind fiberglass or are applying gel coat, you want to make sure that either the person you're doing it with or the person doing the repair is a qualified fiberglass technician. And if you're really raring to go on doing projects like this yourself, make sure that you find somebody who's willing to guide you through that process, somebody qualified professional to guide you through this process. And if you're doing some sort of thing like this at home where you have somebody guiding you through this process and you don't have kind of industrial ventilation like we fortunately do in this workshop here, you really want to make sure that you have enough ventilation in your garage or in your driveway or wherever you're doing this through box fans, through extractor fans that are used that you can get at any of the big box stores. And you want to make sure that the people around you as well, so not just in your immediate area. So, you know, if you're in a neighborhood, all of your neighbors, anybody around you, because this fiberglass stuff, if it's not properly ventilated, can get everywhere. And so you got a lot of concerns if you were trying to tackle this yourself with a professional, to making sure that your space is ventilated and contained enough that you're actually able to try these projects. And I first want to assess how much we've got to grind off. These chips and scrapes aren't a big deal, but what I'm going to focus on is this chunk right at the center of the transom, and then kind of these little areas where we have exposed fiberglass. And to tackle these little areas, I don't want to use the big angle grinder. What I'm actually going to use is a little handheld grinder with a sanding disc at the end of it. And for these little guys especially, just to open up around the edges, because it's already down to exposed fiberglass, we don't have to do too much grinding. Just open up around the edges a little bit to get that gel coat to stick on there. We'll do that in a couple of different places with a handheld smaller grinder like this. This is our other one that we'll use in this kind of wider, flatter area. This is the same grinder that we were using before, except we switched it out for a sanding disc because this is a little bit more delicate of an area. I don't have to take as much gel coat out. I'm just kind of roughing up the edges so that the new gel coat will stay. We've just ground out this gel coat, and now we're going to go ahead and put the new gel coat on. And our first step to that is to get the dust off of here. So we've wiped it down with this paper towel, and we're going to use a little bit of solvent here to finish cleaning it. And we'll clean all of this off and get all of these wounds that we're repairing opened up so they're nice and clean. And then what we're going to do is we will use our gel coat, and we will mix our gel coat here, and we use some of the gel coat, and then also some hardener to make sure that that gel coat kicks. This gel coat is a two-part, so we have the gel coat and then the hardener. And neither of these are chemicals that you want to inhale or get on your skin, especially this hardener stuff. You want to make sure that you're wearing all the proper protective equipment, and have adequate ventilation anytime you're using this. You don't want it anywhere near your body. And then once this is mixed, we will go ahead and mix it and then apply it. And you can apply gel coat a variety of different ways. You can use a sprayer, a paintbrush, a scraper like this to make sure that you get it on there. And we'll use a combination of this scraper and a paintbrush to get it all on there. We're going to go ahead and get started here. So we've just mixed this gel coat, and because we're applying it to some vertical surfaces here, we're going to wait for it to gel a little bit. This stuff takes about 10 to 15 minutes to get sticky, to get tacky, and so we'll wait a little bit of time so that when we put it on, we don't have as much run. And while we're waiting for that, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and take these fittings and all of these areas that we don't want the gel coat to run off on. All right, so we finished our tape job while we're waiting for this gel coat to gel all the way. And we'll go ahead and put the gel coat on here. One of the keys to putting on gel coat is that you don't need to do it all in one coat. This is actually pretty thick, tends to be about 1/16 of an inch thick or so, depending on the age of the boat. Older boats have thicker gel coat. And so you don't need to do it all in one pass. Where it's thin here, we can go ahead and do it in one pass, but this thicker stuff at the edges, we'll put on one thinner coat now, do some sanding, and then put on another coat after that. Alright, so now we've put this gel coat on and we're waiting for it to cure. We want to take this tape off before it cures completely, otherwise the tape will be hard to get off. But because we're working with some vertical surfaces, we'll wait for these drips, if there are any drips, to happen before we get this tape off. So we'll wait a little bit for it to start to gel until it's not running, if it's running at all, and then we'll pull this tape off.